What's going on, YouTube? Tom here. And one reason I really love driving this car to work, I get to take it on lunchtime drives when I'm at work. In fact, I came home today for lunch because I figured, you know what, I'll get lunch at home and get to drive the car for work. For lunch. For work. I'd love to drive this car for work. Someday, if I make it big enough on YouTube, I for sure will do that. But let's talk about another potential car out there. Pretty big name American car, and that's the Corvette. More importantly, let's talk about the mid-engine Corvette. So, over the weekend, Car and Driver has released a rendering on what the mid-engine Corvette is supposed to look like. Now, I want to go ahead and say this, take that with a grain of salt, because renderings don't always mean exactly what the car is going to look like. In fact, this one has been a rendering that we've seen for actually a while now. It's not like it's a new rendering for this car. And to be fair and honest, I really hope it looks nothing like that rendering, because I remember seeing that rendering a while ago and thinking exactly that. Like, I really hope that car just looks absolutely nothing like it. Hard time not wanting to buy it. It sounds good, just like this car. But, so this mid-engine Corvette, it's been rumored now for the last couple of years. In fact, it was supposedly going to be the ZR1, which ended up, of course, ZR1 ended up being a front-engine design C7 car, rather than this mid-engine car. Now, we've seen a few prototypes running around testing the so-called mid-engine car, and then Chevy turned around and kind of teased it a little bit to the dealers. And of course, again, grain of salt, because we just don't know anything about the car other than it potentially is going to be a mid-engine car with the Corvette name. Now, one thing is that they've said they're going to do a V8. Basically, that's about it, because Corvette has to be V8. If they honestly didn't make a V8 in the Corvette, it'd be sacrilege anymore. Because last time they did a 6-cylinder in the Corvette was the C1 in the early days. The original Corvette back in the day came with a straight 6 and was not known for its power, so I don't think it would ever go to anything other than an 8-cylinder in the Corvette. Now, rumored was that it's going to have the, if I remember the displacement correctly, 4.8 V8, the Hot V configuration twin turbo that's now in the Cadillac CT6 V Sport. Now, the big indication of that was there was a leak of a twin turbo Corvette, and then this twin turbo V8 is now, for the Cadillac, is now being built in Bowling Green, Kentucky, which conveniently is where they actually build the Corvette. So that's kind of like this big indication of, does that mean this engine is destined for the Corvette? Now, I personally see nothing opposed to that, but I will say this, what I do think is going to happen with this mid-engine Corvette. The rumors of it being a Cadillac are clearly not right. The car will not be a Cadillac. It sounds like all signs are pointing to Corvette. And that, to me, makes a lot of sense. Why would they make it a Cadillac? GM has this unspoken rule, and they've had it for years, that the top performing GM car is the Corvette. There should not be another faster car. In fact, every time they come out with a car that's rumored to be faster, it's a huge deal, because it's like, that's not supposed to be a thing. No car in GM should be faster. Therefore, that's why from the beginning I said it won't be a Cadillac. It might be, because they might be doing like another Cadillac LMP type program. They actually have done that in the past. But then I thought, well, no, see, that makes no sense. It would have to be a Corvette for that Corvette top name. So here is what I personally believe it is. So back in the 80s, they actually did a Corvette GTP, which is in fact nothing based on the C4 Corvette at the time. It was just a Corvette in name only. So that's like, well, okay, so they're using that Corvette name to go racing with, and then they turned around later and did the Corvette Daytona prototype, which again, Corvette name only, and actually kind of similar drivetrain. Not really very similar, it's modified heavily. So, this got me thinking, this new mid-engine Corvette might not be a road-going car, or not intended to be. It might be a homologation special, kind of like the Ford GT, where they simply only made the Ford GT because they had to in order for it to be legal in Le Mans. So, I see that being the case because they could be using the Corvette name to get that sort of notoriety out there, and they're building instead a Le Mans prototype. That Cadillac V-Sport engine, if I'm not mistaken, it's over 500 horsepower. And I'll put the exact number down here. So, you know, that's not a slouch of a motor either. And of course, presumably they're detuning it for the Cadillac. It probably has more potential than what Cadillac is getting. And then there's been the proposal of a 5.5 liter supercharged V8. They could potentially be doing, you know, 2 tiers of Corvette at that point, which does sort of support the theory that it might be, car in the right gear here, the theory that it might be the C8 Corvette. Although, I kind of doubt, just because a mid-engine Corvette would mean the price of the Corvette going way up, which realistically speaking, Corvettes are kind of known for being a bargain of a car, whereas mid-engine would mean, you know, 100 grand or more. Now, not that I don't see GM wanting to do this, but the problem with that would be that it would just lose that kind of bargain sports car status. Gee, and I really want to know why this car gets such awful gas mileage. I really don't know. As I'm doing 55, why this Mustang gets such shit gas mileage. Just like, I can't figure it out. But yeah, back to the Corvette. You know why I just don't see that being the thing, just because that price would go up. Now, GM has the Camaro, and in fact, they have the ZL1, which is rumored to be faster than a Corvette. So, it's not like GM is hurting for sports cars. The Camaro, since it's been moving up market in the last few years, it's not like they're going to be hurting for fast cars. But I just don't know if I see the Corvette necessarily losing that position. So for that reason, that's why I see the C8, so to speak, as a homologation special for Le Mans. Now, prices, we have no clue, but depending on this motor, it could potentially be as high as like 200 grand, because I don't see it being less than like 150, just because then it would directly compete with the ZR1, and what would be the point of that? You don't want to have two cars that kind of compete with each other price-wise. You don't want that. You want people to understand that this is a top-tier sports car. This is the next tier up. Power-wise, I think it would be hard-pressed to have less than 600, because if you look at it now, the ZR1 has over 700, which makes a lot of sense. So possibly this top-tier version of the mid-engine could have well over 700. But I see the base model coming with at least 600, because it has to beat the Ford GT. So that's what I personally see. And yeah, price-wise, like I said, 200,000 makes most sense, possibly 250,000. GM is kind of always known for coming out with the cheapest level of it, even though it's like, yeah, realistically speaking, that's a lot of money, but what they're probably going to go for is making a car faster than all the other cars in its class. So, realistically speaking, I think it's going to be a pretty impressive car when it does finally come out, as long as it looks nothing like that rendering once again. But it should be pretty amazing. I don't see a reason why GM can't make a pretty amazing sports car out of it. So anyway, let me know in the comment section below what you think of this mid-engine Corvette. Are any of you excited for it, or do you think it's going to be a big flop for GM, since they're just basically going to make a very expensive sports car with a Corvette name. Anyway, if you like this video, go ahead and leave a thumbs up. If you're stopping in for the first time, go ahead and subscribe. Take care. Have a good day.